Would you stay till the morning light, or would you follow me?
Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Kayla, and if you're not new, thanks for coming back. Always happy to have you. If you are new, I like to do a lot of book and lifestyle content here on this channel. Lately, I've been doing a series reviewing every book I've read in 2022, and I'm having a lot of fun doing that. So if any of that interests you, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below and stick around to hang out. I am super excited for today's video. It is another book review of one of my reads of 2022, and I am so excited to share this book with you because it is truly, it is one of the best books I've read in 2022, if not the best book I've read in 2022. And we are going to get into it, but I'm so excited to be talking about The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. Y'all, we have a lot to talk about. But before we dive on in, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below so you don't miss any of my reviews. Let me know what you're reading in the comments down below. I am super curious to see and to grow my reading list. And now that I'm done with this, I need something else to read. And make sure that you grab yourself a beverage. I am sick, as you can probably tell from my voice, so I have some nice water here in my Yeti. Go grab whatever you're needing, whether it's your water today to get hydrated, if you need coffee, tea, go do that, and we will meet back here to talk about this book. Y'all, I am literally ill. I took a sick day today. Either have like a sinus infection or like the worst spring cold in the history of spring colds. I took a sick day today, and I was gonna chill out and like nap and read and like just hang out. The way this book consumed me, that is all that I have done today. I have not even taken a nap yet on my sick day because I needed to finish this book. I've only been reading this book for about 2 days, so I literally flew through it, and I read like 260 pages of it today, so definitely really went for it. I literally drug myself out of that bed after I finished reading to come talk to you guys about this book because it was so good. My boyfriend Grant is literally on his way here to drive me to Barnes & Noble to get the second book in the series because I need to know what happens. So like basically that should be review enough in itself. Let's talk about The Inheritance Games. This is this young adult realistic fiction thriller mystery. It's not a murder mystery, so there's not any like real violence in that way. There's attempted murder, but the mystery does not center around murder. This is the first book, this green one. The second one is out. It came out last September. That is the Hawthorne Legacy. And the third and final book in this series comes out in, I'm hoping it's the third and final book. TBD. It should be. It says The Final Gambit number 3 comes out this coming August, which is really annoying because I'm gonna want the last book. Avery Grams lives in Connecticut, and her mother has passed away. Her dad is absent in her life. She's being raised by her older half-sister Libby, and she's super intelligent. She's really good at math and physics and puzzles and riddles and things like that. And one day she gets pulled out of class, and she's taken to her principal's office, where there is this man in a like very sharp looking gray suit who tells her that she is being requested at the reading of a will of this famous philanthropic billionaire Tobias Hawthorne, who lives in Texas. So she's being flown from Connecticut to Texas. She's never met Tobias Hawthorne. She has no idea who that is, but she's somehow involved in his will. He basically leaves nothing to his family and leaves his entire inheritance to Avery, this girl he has never met, and she has no idea why she's there. The only stipulation is that she has to survive and live in Hawthorne House for 1 year to inherit all of these things. It creates a whole puzzle and mystery with the letters that he's left to all of them, the 4 Hawthorne grandsons and Avery, to try and figure out why she of all people is being left this massive inheritance of billions and billions of dollars and assets and estates, takes them kind of on this whirlwind puzzle to figure out why Avery Grams of all people and what Tobias Hawthorne was really getting at. And along the way there's some like light romance, light attraction between Avery and some of the Hawthorne grandsons. So yeah, we're gonna get into it. I do want to disclaim that this will be a spoiler-free review as much as I can, because honestly there are so many little like there's so many things that are revealed throughout the novel that everybody should have the experience of discovering those in the process of reading. So I'm going to keep this as spoiler free as possible. Let's talk about the cons. The number one con being that the third book doesn't come out until August. It's just rude. You don't write a series if this is this gripping and compelling and not release them all at once. That's just mean. That's a joke, but not really. And this is so stupid and little and nitpicky, but it's just an inconsistency throughout the book that like just drove me bananas. If you're new here, I live in Massachusetts. I live about an hour away from Connecticut. Okay, I've never been to Texas, but I do know how time zones work. And throughout this book, oh, my boyfriend's calling. Hold on. He's been delayed in his travels to bring me to Barnes & Noble. But I do know how time zones work. And throughout this book, once Avery goes to Austin, or I don't know why I said Austin. Once Avery goes to Texas, she is texting and calling her friend back in Connecticut, Max, repeatedly. Throughout this book, they claim that Connecticut's time is behind Texas. Connecticut is never behind Texas. Like, literally never. Like, there was one specific scene. Tippy is still in my bed from my last review, if you didn't see. It was 3 or it was like 5 o'clock for Avery in the morning, and she called Max, and Max was like, it's even earlier for me, it's 3. If you're in Connecticut, you're going to be ahead of Texas, like by several hours. I think like 3 hours. So if it was 5 o'clock for Avery, it'd be like 8 a.m. for Max. And they just kept bringing that up over and over again throughout the book, the fact that Max was time-wise behind Avery, which is just not true. It's a very small detail. It doesn't take away from the storytelling by any means, but it's just something that I wish the editing staff would have picked up on, because it's just inaccurate. It was really annoying to read. This is maybe, like, it's kind of a con, but not really. I don't think it took away from the story. There were a lot of like breadcrumbs of romance for Avery with kind of 2 of the Hawthorne grandsons, and they were just like little juicy tidbits of things, but never anything full-fledged. And while I liked that it didn't take away from the mystery of the story, the breadcrumbs left me wanting more. So I wish that there was a little bit more romance, or even like a hint of future romance in the books, but it's literally just breadcrumbs. It's not at all about the romance. And like I said, it made it really easy to focus on the mystery at hand, but once you got those like juicy little tidbits of romance, you really wanted them to continue. There are a lot of pieces, and maybe it's just because I'm reading the first one, there are a lot of pieces of things or like trails you were given that are never followed up on, and I'm assuming that they do come in later. Like, for example, one line that is repeated throughout the book is that Avery's mother, who passed away previously, says over and over again, I have a secret about the day that you were born. And we get through this whole book and she keeps bringing it up, like probably 6 or 7 times she references this line that her mother says, but then never ever in this book do we know what that secret is that is to be revealed from the day that Avery was born. I hate that. Like, if you were going to leave it through the whole book and not tell me, in this next sequel you best be telling me what that secret is. Again, just like really compelling parts of the story that you want to read more, that you wish were kind of just given you right away. But like, I think that Jennifer Lynn Barnes has a bigger plan, and I'm really hoping she's got this bigger plan figured out, that it takes place in the second book. That's really all that I had for cons, but I have a lot of pros, so let's dive on into those. Y'all, this book was so good. First, this book was so incredibly well thought out. I love reading mysteries and like puzzle riddle books because I am not smart enough to figure out the riddles myself. I cannot figure out the puzzles. I will not be the puzzle solver. Will I go along for the ride and read somebody else figuring out the puzzles because they're smarter than me and can do that? Absolutely. So for me, that's what this book was. I could never figure out all of these riddles. I wouldn't like get this letter and be like, all right, whatever. Like, I would not have any hint of what to do. And Avery is so freaking brilliant that she's able to figure out all of these little clues and puzzles and riddles, and it's just mind-blowing. And the fact that Jennifer Lynn Barnes came up with this as a writer, and like, you got to be smart to figure out the riddle, but you have to be even smarter to create the riddle. Jennifer Lynn Barnes, you are epic, ma'am. Very similar, or gave me a lot of similar vibes to Truly Devious by Maureen Johnson, which was a murder mystery, but there were puzzles and riddles that were like solved throughout. I think for me, a huge part of books, whether or not I like them, is buying into the protagonist and if I can connect to the protagonist. And I truly loved Avery as a character. She was first super smart. She was super independent. She was definitely rough around the edges. She had like a quick tongue. She was quick to snap back at people and stand up for herself, which I thought was really cool. But she also has this really, really cool like empathy and sensitive side to herself. Like, she can very quickly read the emotions of what people are feeling and feels for them very strongly and empathizes with them, which I think is really cool. And I think sometimes you get these like really independent and like strong female characters that like stand up for themselves but then have no capability of being emotional. And that's not the case for Avery. She is like tough and she is strong and she's independent and she's perseverant and she's going to keep going, but she also can be sensitive and she can also be emotional. And there was even a line in this book about even girls with edges have feelings. Super self-aware and very tender. Like, there's a moment where she realizes that she's not being the best friend to her best friend Max, and like that she's by coming into this situation, she's changed so many other people's lives, not just her own, and she feels for that and she feels responsible for that and a little bit guilty. She also just has like a tenderness quality to her that she like wants to help people. Like, ultimately she wants to help people, whether it is the homeless guy she plays chess with in the park to the Hawthorne grandsons that she knows should have the money more than her. She wants to help, which is really cool. It was also really interesting. There is some parallels between the Hawthorne grandsons and Avery. Their lives are actually a lot more entwined than you realize at the start of the book. You start to kind of recognize, and those things are revealed to you as you're reading, but they also had some parallels in their lives separate from how they are intertwined. Avery grew up with a mom who always created games for her, and they would play games all of the time, and that's exactly how the Hawthorne boys grew up. Their grandfather creating puzzles and challenges and games for them, and I think that's just like a really cool full circle moment for them both to live very, very different lives, but to be connected by this one aspect that they grew up playing games that led them to where they are today, playing the ultimate game. I have to say, this book moved so quickly, and it truly does suck you in right away. By page 6, you know that Avery is going to Texas to be at the reading of this will. So it starts off very quickly and it moves very quickly, but it takes you for a ride. It literally just sucks you in, and I could not put this book down. It was nuts. I have not found a book that has kept me up past my bedtime because I needed to know what happened in a very, very long time. I found a book in a very, very long time where I immediately needed to go purchase the next book to know what happens. I don't know what's going to become of me when I finish the second book and the third one is not available for purchase. And I feel like I mean, I've already talked about this, but I feel like really the biggest pro of this story is how intricate and how well thought out it was. There are so many stories layered into Avery's and into the Hawthorne boys' stories that it's so incredible. Like, this was truly a feat for Jennifer Lynn Barnes to execute, and she did it so well. It's a great story with complex characters. It has a bit of romance. It almost felt like, this is not a pro or con, but this is a thought I could not figure out. It feels a little love triangle-y, right? Like, it feels like Avery has some love energy with Jameson, the third oldest. So there are 4 Hawthorne boys. There is Nash, there's Grayson, Jameson, and Alexander. So there's some like love energy with Jameson and Avery as they start to try and work through these puzzles, but then there's also some subtle love energy between Grayson and Avery. It was just like Avery's just being like physically attracted to him, or if I was just like reading romance into it because I wanted there to be more romance. But I feel like there was energy between both of them, but I couldn't tell. There definitely was with Jameson, but with Grayson I was not sure, but it felt like there could be. Oh, this was another pro that I wanted to talk about. Well, we're also it's kind of a far-fetched concept, right, that you're randomly approached and is somehow included in a will of a billionaire, whatever. It's a very like Cinderella rags to riches story, very far-fetched, when would not happen to the average person. And they're solving these like really intricate puzzles, and you're more focused on the puzzles. Jennifer Lynn Barnes talks about some like pretty serious topics in the process, which I think is important, and I love to see these real life serious topics be handled in books. I'm trying to think how I want to say this. Like, while these topics are really dark and really heavy, they do happen and they are happening, and it's important to give them the space and conversation and to include them in her story, in her novel, brings them into the conversation, and brings exposure and awareness to them. And also, you can get these kinds of topics like domestic violence and drug use and things like that in any book, because it can happen to anyone. Avery's older sister, Libby, is a survivor of domestic violence. She has an abusive boyfriend, Drake, and Jennifer Lynn Barnes doesn't like tiptoe around this subject. She's very clear in this, but what is also interesting is she talks about Avery, and as Avery is witnessing this happening to Libby, Jennifer Lynn Barnes is also talking very much about how to be supportive of somebody in those circumstances. She talks about how Avery thinks about what Libby needs right now, which is not to be judged, but to be supported, and things like that, which is important. Like, while these are dark and scary and sad things to talk about, they need to be talked about. Those are my pros and cons for this book. I could talk about the Inheritance Games forever, but let me give you my rating. If you couldn't already tell, it's a 5-star read. I definitely think that so many people would love this book. I wish people would talk about it more. I found it on Book Talk. I feel like it's one of those really popular Book Talk books right now, but I think it's worth the hype. Is truly, as evidenced by my plans later today, this is a book that you need to not walk to your nearest bookstore and grab a copy of and start reading immediately. I 100% think that you should be reading this book. My managers told me that I was gross because I'm sick. I absolutely think you should. I think that like adults would really love this novel. I think it's great for young adults. I think like even older middle readers could definitely get into this book. I truly could not recommend this book more highly. I am so excited about this book, and I definitely think that you should read it, especially if you love mysteries or thrillers. This book will keep you going. There's enough action in it to just keep you invested in reading. Maybe wait until August. As much as I want you to go read it right now, if you're anything like me, you're gonna want all 3, so maybe wait until August. Dude, you're ridiculous. Bruh, what are you doing? So 5-star read, definitely go check it out. If you've read the Inheritance Games, what did you think? Were you as obsessed as me? What did you rate it? Let me know. If you haven't read it yet, are you going to? Do you want to? I really think you should. But that is all I have for you guys today. I hope this review was helpful for you. I hope you are now convinced to go read the Inheritance Games, as you should be. Make sure you go follow me over on my Instagram. This was actually a book that my followers on Instagram picked for me to read. I put this one up against A Court of Thorns and Roses, and the Inheritance Games won, if that's saying anything. So make sure you go follow me on Instagram so you can pick my next read, though I will tell you my next read will definitely be the Hawthorne Legacy, to see what happens next to Avery. I will see you guys in my next one. I hope you have a wonderful day wherever you are, and happy reading. Bye.
Would you stay till the morning light, or would you follow me?